Unbound stage today, I'd like to talk about riffs. So riffs are something we saw during the podcast. It was a roundtable for CC content creators, along with Simon and Sham. And so Simon and Sham kind of presented information. It was information we knew some of. Like riffs were a nebulous kind of. We knew they were in the game. We had some details if you digged about them a little bit, but there was nothing ever formally, like there wasn't a dedicated video with here's how riffs work. So this is the first one doing it. They presented information. They presented the current design space of riffs, and they asked 3 CCs. It was Odd One, it was Raven Pyros, and Ramses. How do you feel about this, right? And so it sounds super great. I'd love to be part of it. You guys know where to find me if you get me. Summer's coming up. I'll be free really then. So yeah, I would love to do a round table of that as well. But regardless, it was a great chat, phenomenal chat, right? And I really love the format, and it was really informative and had good discussion. So from that, let's go with the design goals. These were presented directly from Simon and Sham. And so number one is this is the place you farm books. This is it, right? You have to engage with riffs to get books. People are getting it twisted, I think. Riff keys are not for double rewards. They are for farming books. So any suggestions we do should have that in our mind first and foremost. Now, double rewards lie into two. They do not use energy directly, but tie into current dungeons. They make current dungeons harder. So to compensate you for that, you get double rewards. But their identity is not double rewards. That is not their identity. It is to get books. I think this is a fair compensation to get for design goal 2. And we'll get to that as well, right? And it should have a risk reward element. What's risk reward mean? There is a time to say yes, and there is a time to say no, right? And both of them should be reasonable options at different stages. And it should be easier to say yes depending on certain elements. It should be easier to say no based on other elements, right? Let's continue. Current facts. Beating a rift will give you the skill up, right? Which is great. And double the base reward of the dungeon. I agree with this. 100%. I think this is the perfect lever to pull. I'm fighting 2 bosses and I'm using a resource, which is the rift key, right? This seems great to me. This is very interesting to me as well, right? And we'll get to that as well. There's currently a 15% chance for a rift to spawn. Now, when I bring these facts up, right, I want to go back to this. Design goals are something we cannot change. This is something that I'm hesitant to change. Fateless is. I agree with these design goals I agree with these design goals, and so I'm hesitant to change them. But I think these current facts are a lot easier to convince Fateless to change. That's why I wrote them in a separate thing. So, for instance, I disagree with the 15% chance to spawn a rift, right? And we'll cover that later in the video. But like, this is why I have it here too. I think the facts can change. I think the design goals shouldn't change, right? Unless they're like inherently bad, which I don't think these are. I think these are phenomenal design goals. All right. 3. When a rift spawns, you choose to enter it or bank the key to enter the rift later. This makes perfect sense because their primary goal is to create books. If I'm pushing dungeons or am I doing a dungeon I cannot do the rift for, I do not want to lose my ability to get books. Makes perfect sense to me. For multiplayers, you have a chance to toggle rifts and bank keys. Sure. And both of these are to make saying no easier, right? It's always hard to say no to double rewards, right? I think if you play Satisfyer, if you play other games, if they give you an option to take an extra fight for double rewards, you almost always have to say yes. It's too inefficient to say no. In this case, I think they made it very easy to say no, which, risk reward, right? It's easier to say no. But we'll get to that. There is no limit to bank keys. This is, again, so you can efficiently say no. And then there are different type of keys. This is the only fact I disagree with. Right, let's continue. Now, these concerns were brought up. These are concerns I kind of pulled out of the podcast. I kind of see other people talking about this, right? So 50% of playtesters did not engage with rifts at all, right? They were too confused or too scared, or maybe they didn't even engage it with it, right? Maybe they tried it once and it didn't work. I think this is largely due to, being a new thing, and they're testing a lot of other things, right? They're testing a progression, and maybe they don't see the value of skill ups that much, right? I think also to, you know, there's no content creators to help people parse through what you should be doing with your keys, right? So it's, there's a lack of knowledge here as well. And they just kept banking their keys because it's safe, right? So 50% of people taking the safe option because they didn't understand something makes perfect sense to me. There is a concern that there's ability to farm keys on a lower level content and cash in on high level content. I think this is a non-issue because of the spawn rate being so low, being 15%. You're not going to do 7 runs of lower content to get 1 key for double rewards on higher content. I do not think that's I don't think that's a big deal at all. The concern is if you have all these lower keys, and we'll get to that as well. If you have all these lower keys, you have to farm lower stages to use it. If you have like a novice key, for example, that is this one here. I think this fact just has to go. It makes playing like these keys are supposed to make current dungeons harder to give me a reward. I shouldn't have to go back to like trivial dungeons just to use my resources, right? Honestly, if I push past the need of novice keys, those sit on my account forever. I just don't need them, right? And that feels really bad. And the other concern is there is no reason to enter the rift as it appears. And I 1000% agree with this concern. So that's going to be my first thing, right? So every concern links to a risk versus reward, right? So, is the reward too easy to access, right? It's too easy to say no, basically, right? It is clear that the risk of losing your energy is greater than the risk of skill ups and double damage, right? As at least the obvious conclusion. Suggestion 1. There needs to be a greater reason to enter a rift rather than there is now. When I say enter a rift, I mean enter it as it appears, a natural rift, rather a key rift. And so this is kind of vague, so I want to kind of go through what are ways we can do this, but I think suggestion 1 is quite clear, and I think this is what we have to do here. So, putting a hard and a soft cap on keys. This was the first thing my mind went to. I went to a soft cap. I was like, okay, you can bank 30 keys. Once you hit 30, there's a 1% chance less that your rift appears, so it goes to 14. And if you follow that math, when you get to 100 keys, you have a 0% chance to get a rift. And then Odd One suggested a hard cap of 100 keys, right? And I think this hurts new players too much when you don't have a safe outlet for rifts. This feels quite bad, right? So suggested 2 is when you're using your keys, when you're cashing out your keys, you forfeit your natural rift spawns. So what that means is you don't want to bank keys because you know you'll have to cash them out at some point to get your skill ups. And when you do that, you lose the rifts that would happen, right? So if you use 10 keys and there are 2 rifts that are going to pop up during those runs, you just lose those 2 rifts. I dislike this as well. I think this one punishes saying no logically enough, right? Let's say I have a flow of my keys where I have the rift of Zemi stage 10 on lock, right? I can do that 100% of the time. Let's say I'm doing stage 15 of Zemi to farm gear. I strategically have a pipeline. I built characters, so I earn keys at stage 15, and then I go back down to stage 10, and I cash them out, right? That punishes that strategy too much, I think, right? Suggestion 3, this came up with the Hive Mind. I think 9 and Bionic and Soplin really came to this conclusion. When you complete a natural rift, so a rift that is not spawned from a key, you have a chance to earn a key, right? And like 20 to 30%. So it basically means if you're doing natural rifts, right, the risk to say yes, right, you know that, hey, you might get 2 rifts instead of 1, right? A fifth to a third of the time. And I like this one a lot, actually, right? It makes it, because right now we're really leaning saying no, like, hey, why don't I just bank my keys and use them later? They're like, hey, if I do this, I might get another key too. And I think this is our best case scenario, right? I really like this. So I think this is my suggestion here to make saying yes more tempting is, hey, you can get more keys. right? So I'd like to bring your attention here. This is a live stream that Simon did showing off the hag. And we can see here that it cost more energy to enter stages as expected. Same thing in raid. Here is also, I pulled this from Charlemagne's video. He said that Sham dropped this at some point and I missed it. We can see actually use void keys here. So you see he has banked 17 void keys. He can click this button, I imagine. And then when he hits battle or multi-battle, he will go through his 17 keys one by one, right? But you see it costs 12 energy. And this is stage 12. I cut it off here, but this is stage 12, not stage 2. So I think this goes against Design Goal 2 and Fact 2. I think these are kind of clashing with each other. I think Design Goal 2 is a bit nebulous, right? And I think, on purpose, he didn't want to box down the stuff, but you don't use energy directly, but you tie it into your current dungeon, right? That's Design Goal 2. And Fact 2 is they have a 15% chance to drop. Well, this means that per energy, you're getting twice as many keys doing early content than later content. That means that newer players are getting a lot more rift keys that they know what to do with. And later players who can use them more efficiently are getting less per energy. This is my suggestion too. The spawn rate should be based on key per energy basis. So for example, if you choose that there should be an average of 1 key per 75 energy, you just do 6 divided by 75. And then it'll give you an 8% chance for here. And then when you double your energy cost, you double your chance to go in. And it's just that simple, right? So every player will on average get 1 key per energy, right? It's the same thing with like every player gets, let's say, in raid, it's 300 energy a day if you do all your stuff, right? The same thing as here, right? If you get 300 energy a day, you get 4 keys a day. Right? If you use all your energy in your dungeons, right? And so it's it doesn't matter where you use it, you're gonna, you're tying kind of daily keys, right, to your energy. I think this makes perfect sense to me, right? So let's continue. Design Goal 1. This is the number 1 place to farm skill ups. Therefore, I think early players need a safe place to use their keys. And so I think the Rift boss should be unique to dungeons. And this allows you to make Ascension Dungeon having easier bosses. In fact, Ascension Dungeons might not even have bosses. Maybe if you use a Rift key on an Ascension Dungeon, it just makes 1 or 2 more waves happen, right? Like a Rift opens, you have to go beat 2 more waves, then the Rift closes, and you keep going, right? And I think this is a lot more... I think this is an obvious flow of hey, I don't want to farm Ascension Dungeons, because it doesn't, I don't care about Ascension material that much. I'd rather have more gear, but it's a safe outlet for my keys, and I really want these books, right? And so that this ties into my next suggestion. I think the book rewards should be the stage of dungeon completed, regardless of which stage is done. This makes keys a part of account progression and enables player choice. So we push Ascension Dungeons, which will be, I imagine, easier if we consider it as raid. And then you can push Rifts in Ascension Dungeons. So when I get to the max Ascension Dungeon, I am getting the maximum book reward from keys. But I'm not maximizing my double reward from keys, which fits with Design Goal 1, right? These are primarily for books, not for double rewards, right? So pushing to stage 15 of Ascension Dungeon to get my maximum book reward for my suggestion feels good. Now I push gear dungeons, and then eventually my gear dungeon stage will be the same as my Ascension Dungeon stage, and then now I push Rifts in my gear dungeon, right? And this makes an interesting trait, right? And I'm going to go to the next thing to give you an example. Imagine you can complete stage 15 of the Void Ascension Dungeon, right? You just have the team to do it. You naturally built the team. And you're on stage 10 of Zemi. You're pushing Zemi on your account. Right? Maybe this is probably let's say a month and a half in, maybe a month and a half, right? And you have your resources to level your next 60. Do you max the hero that enables you to farm Rifts at stage 15 of Void Ascension, enables you to farm Rifts at stage 10 of Zemi, or enables you to push 13 of Zemi? It's not as clear now, right? And so if you choose stage 15, you are maximizing your books per key, but you're not maximizing your double rewards because you're getting an ascension material instead of, and ascension materials are always good on your account, right? But it's not affecting your account right now. It's affecting future pulls on your account, right? Which doesn't feel as good, right? B is okay. I farm stage 10 of Zemi, right? I'm going to choose a character that still does the mechanics of Zemi, or doesn't hurt the mechanics of Zemi, but also helps me farm the rift that's there. Or, hey, I ignore the rift. I'm just going to push the stage 15. I'm going to do a more Zemi specialized character, but it does not help my rift push at all, right? And this is very interesting, right? And this enables good choices, right? Do you want to maximize your energy, right? This is maximizing energy. This is also kind of maximizing energy, right? I want to farm Zemi gear. Or do I maximize my key usage? I think this is very important. So here are my suggestions on the screen here, just all as one, right? And I kind of went through the reason why I think that way. I have a few questions here that Simon asked throughout the video that I'll just kind of answer. I have it on paper here, right? And I'll kind of go through this, right? Do I like the risk versus reward? Absolutely, positively. I love it. Sign me up for it. Should double rewards only be for non-key rifts? I disagree with that, right? I think that, if you do that, key rifts become really, really hard, and the only reward is, the double energy. I think that to balance out the natural rifts, you should just have a chance of getting a key. Like we said, this is suggestion 1, right? Should we skip keys? Should we not have keys at all? I do disagree with that as well. I think that punishes early players a lot, right? You're balancing yes and no, and I think both these are two extremes, right? If you strip away double rewards, you make saying no too hard, right? Currently, saying no is too easy, but you make it too hard then. And the same thing with skipping keys, you make saying no too hard. Farming low-level content, I think suggestion 2 will really fix that, right? You will get less keys, right? I don't think it's a problem even with the current 15%, but I think suggestion 2 really solves that. And then I think suggestion 4 also comes with the assumption that we're going to get rid of the different types of void keys, and you're just going to get one rift key. I keep saying void key because I'm so used to Warframe, right? Rift key. It's a rift key. If you just make it one rift key, and then the stage of dungeon decides your reward, right? It seems very natural, and it gets rid of resource bloat as well, right? And also, you can give out rift keys as a reward. And it feels good for every level of character so if you have a contest and you give out rift keys to everyone, if you give out only says the highest level is advanced or whatever, right? Or master or whatever garbage. If you give out master keys, your new players can't use them. And if you give out novice keys, your late game players can't use them. So if you just give out rift keys, people can use them, right? So rotating rift bosses, every dungeon should have its own. I think every dungeon should have its own boss. And I think that you make the ascension bosses easier, right? Maybe not even boss, maybe it's just extra waves, right? A good example here for rotation, I think that you should have, let's say, what is it, 5? There's 3 gear dungeons and 2 weapon dungeons. So maybe you make 3 bosses, and every couple months they rotate, right? So we know Raw is one of them. So maybe Raw starts on Hag, and then next rotation it goes to Zemi. And so now, let's say he said Svarog as an example, right? So let's say, okay, Svarog starts on Zemi. Svarog's her, sure, right? Zemi plus Svarog is a different fight from Raw plus Svarog. I need to bring in a different team. So, I think that could be a cool way to shake it up. So I don't have to learn new bosses. I just have to learn how to deal with the new combination of bosses, right? And every once in a while, you can bring in a new boss. This is a new story beat, and I think in the early games, Poseidon was a character they talked about like bringing in a lot, right? So when Poseidon comes out, maybe you want to make him a boss as well. So you add him to the rotation, right? And then now maybe bosses rotate in, rotate out, make things more interesting. But if I build a team to beat Raw, I can just follow Raw around the different gear dungeons, right? So I think that's cool as well. And then another note I have here is that heroes that can stack their abilities between waves become really good against rifts. So there are characters that say this stacks permanently. Those are good against rifts, right? Because you get an extra wave to stack your buff against, right? I think this is all my notes on it. I thought this video would be longer, but when you really distill it down, it's a really cool system, and I think it's mostly good. If it was implemented as it currently is now, I'd be perfectly fine with it. But we can do a few adjustments to really make it feel better. I think that suggestion 1 makes it easier to say yes to the natural rifts. Suggestion 2 makes it so newbies, new accounts, I shouldn't say newbies, but new accounts aren't flooded with keys they can't use, right? And there's no temptation to farm lower stages to get keys. Stage 3 is, I think design goal 1 says that keys are primarily for getting books. So I think the dungeons that have the less good rewards, aka worse double rewards, should have easier rift dungeons, easier rift bosses. So if in the current build it's only raw, I think that if you have time before the beta, obviously put in waves instead, like don't even have raw there. If you don't have time before the beta, Fateless, and I think you should implement this in the beta because I think it makes a cool flow. Just make raw way weaker in the Ascension dungeons, right? Make that very clear. And then 4, it kind of ties in with 3 once again. Just tie the book rewards to the dungeons, so I don't feel bad about doing my Ascension dungeon, right? And this makes all the keys into one key. That's the big thing suggestion 4 does. All right, with that, I think I'm good. I'd love to know your comments down below. Also, subscribe. All right, guys, take care. I'll see you later. Bye.